Hello everybody, this is Kyle Ott from Magic Stew doing a quick draft fundamentals video. So for all those of you who are planning on getting into the draft format, this is something that's for you. This is not designed for the experienced wizards, this is designed for people who are really starting to start off on their draft journey and they want to get a little bit better. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off. Of course, it has my credentials on the bottom, licensed wizard, chicken nugget enthusiast, both of those are true. Alright, moving on. So the idea of this presentation is to take your drafting from this to this. Fair warning, your sharks and your bears are probably not included. Also, depending on the store you're at and how many people are there, you might not want to make any explosions. They might get a little mad about that. But we want your draft to feel like that. So let's start off with a basic introduction. So what is draft? So first things first, if you have never drafted before, this slide is for you. Draft is a limited format, which is to say that you do not need to play a 60-card deck. You open up 3 booster packs, you take a card out, you pass it to the left, the person on your left passes you a pack, you do this till every card in the pack is gone, you open up the second pack, pass it to the right, and then you do the same thing with a third pack, only this time, again, you pass it to the left. The goal is that you need to make a 40-card deck. That is very, 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 very important. But of course, some people try it. Like I've seen a couple people who go into their first draft and try and make a 60-card deck. You don't have to do that. And if it's your first time, you definitely want to try to make 40 cards. Creatures are a little bit more important as well. You guys can see some of those bullet points there. But again, this is a bullet point that needs reiterating. Draft is a format that is all about board presence. Moving forward. So, a couple quick considerations to talk a little bit about. You can read these. I'm not going to go over and read every single one of them. But it is kind of important for you guys to understand going into your first format. You might be tempted to play every single card that you would like to draft. I assure you that is absolutely not the case. You do not want to do that. 40 cards, definitely the best thing there. You usually want to play anywhere between 17 and 16 land. Depending on the format, you might want to go down a little bit to 16. I've even played in a couple draft formats where 15 land was definitely permissible, but generally anywhere between 16 and 18 land is what you're usually going to see. Of course, you really want, again, as many creatures as humanly possible to help you impact the board. So, moving on, just like this man who is very, very, very curious, we're going to talk about what actually makes a good draft card. Now, I know Ixalan is not a very popular format, but we're going to be using Ixalan cards to talk about what kind of stuff you should be picking up in a draft and when. And what really, really, really helps you out is an acronym called BREAD. Now, BREAD stands for bombs, removal, efficient cards, anything else, and dregs. So let's start by talking about what is a bomb, other than that. I know it's funny, but we're talking about cards. All right, now, a bomb is any card that allows you to win the game out of nowhere. Bomb creatures usually have something called evasion, which means they have some way of getting past your opponent's creatures, or some way of shrugging off your opponent's spells. Think of things like unblockable, or flying, or hexproof. Something along those lines helps a bomb to get through your opponent's defenses and allows you to win the game. Bomb creatures usually have great stats and powerful abilities. This is very important as well, as those will help you transition and win the game. Bomb spells, on the other hand, usually just kill your opponent. One of the most common board wipe kind of effects that you'll see, that's a bomb. So something along the lines of Fumigate. Dusk Till Dawn can potentially be a very powerful bomb as well. For those of you who remembered the Amonkhet Limited, Settle the Wreckage is actually one of the bombs that we talk about here, and so is Carnage Tyrant as well. Now, both of these, huge bombs, and they deserve to be talked about. Now, Settle the Wreckage, obviously, it's a spell. It exiles all of your opponent's attacking creatures. Like we continue to mention, Limited is a very creature-heavy format. So when you're able to take out all of your opponent's creatures, that's excellent, and it's something that you want to understand. It's a very powerful effect in Limited. Carnage Tyrant, obviously, huge body, great abilities, trample and hexproof, both kinds of evasion, and of course, the ability that it can't be countered, also quite nice. Now, removal is anything that kills or exiles a creature. A common mistake that I see all of the time is that players will say, oh, discard and counterspell are removals. They're not. I assure you they are not. You want to be able to take creatures off the board. Obviously, enchantments, things like pacifism, or in this case, pious interdiction, count a little bit towards that as well. These are 3 of the best removal spells in Ixalan Limited right now. Ixalan's Binding is great because it can take out any creature that doesn't have hexproof, and if your opponent has extra copies of them, they can't cast those. Lightning Strike is able to kill most things in the format at instant speed for relatively cheap cost, and the same thing with Savage Stomp. Basically being able to pay 1 mana to pump up one of your guys and kill one of their guys is very, very hard for your opponents to come back from. Now, again, Draft is a very creature-heavy format, so being able to interact with your abilities, with your creatures, and interact with your opponent's creatures is very, very important. Commonly, we joke around, we say this is like some way to reach out and touch somebody, but these are some of the best ways that you can reach out and touch someone in Ixalan Limited. So these are obviously primary picks. So if you don't see a bomb in your pack, try and look for some removal. Now, efficient creatures, these include top tier commons and uncommons. These are usually the cards that are used to help push your deck. They have, generally speaking, a lot more power than their mana cost would suggest. They can help actually push you into archetypes if you don't see high quality removal or bombs in the pack. Let's reiterate that point there a little bit. But these are some of the most efficient creatures in Ixalan. For example, you would be willing to pay 2 mana for a 2/2. However, 2 mana for a 2/1 that either draws you a card if it finds a land, or 2 mana for a 3/2 that lets you keep a good card on top or get rid of a bad card that's on the top of your deck is excellent. It's part of the reason that Merfolk Branchwalker is an efficient card. Pirate's Cutlass, same thing. It's colorless, which means you can play it in every single deck. It allows you to basically equip it when you play it, as long as you have a pirate, which means that you're being a little bit more mana efficient. It pumps up your guys, and after the creature holding it dies, you can use it on other creatures as well. Part of this makes Pirate's Cutlass an official card, or an efficient card, I should say. Now, Siren Lookout, same thing. A 3 mana 1/2 flyer that draws you a card if it finds a land, or a 3 mana 2/3 flyer that can block anybody and also either keep a good card on top or have you discard a card that you no longer need, is an excellent card. These are all examples of efficient cards. These make fine pack 1, pick ones, or anywhere. Usually you'll find efficient cards between packs or picks 4 and 6, 4 and 7, depending on how deep the packs are. But generally you want to be on the lookout for things that are mana efficient, generally cheap, and allow you a little bit of utility. Those are the hallmarks of an efficient card. Anything else, it's a pretty standard issue title. Anything else basically says, hey, I need something to fill up my curve. So for example, if you're missing 2 drops, you'll look for 2 mana cards. If you're looking for 3 drops, you'll look for 3 mana cards. If you're desperate for removal, this is when you'll usually grab your 5-drop removal spells, your 6-drop sorcery speed removal spells, things like that. But anything else, basically, it's all in the name right there. So a couple examples of anything else. Brazen Buccaneers and Direfleet Interloper. Now, I know what you're saying. The last 2 cards we talked about had Explore, but the difference between those cards and these cards is that 4 mana cost, and the fact that these are both 2/2s. If they had both been 3/3s, for example, if Brazen Buccaneers was a 4 mana 3/3, it would be a little bit different. For a reason we're going to go into in another video. That's called the vanilla test, and that's going to be another skill that you will have to learn when you're trying to become good at drafting. But because of their low base stats, they get sort of shuffled into the anything else category. They're both fine cards. You're never going to be mad about running a Brazen Buccaneers or a Direfleet Interloper, but generally speaking, you're not too excited about it either. The sort of I'm okay with running this, but I'm not excited about running this is the hallmark of an anything else card. Slash of Talons falls into that category of conditional removal as well. I know it only does 2 damage to an attacking or blocking creature. It's nice that it's cheap, and it's nice that it's at instant speed, but again, doesn't kill everything that you need it to kill, and that's why it falls into the anything else category. The Dregs. The Dregs are just the absolute worst cards. You will generally never be happy about playing these. We would refer to them as hot garbage or a dumpster fire. Generally speaking, Dregs are really, really awful. So let's talk a little bit about Dregs right here. Blinding Fog, generally speaking, fogs and life gain abilities of any kind, like straight gain life abilities, are really bad in Limited. There are some exceptions. Obviously, there's an exception, especially with Limited, when you've got 200 and some cards all playing out differently. So occasionally, you'll find some exceptions to these rules, but again, this is just to give you a general rule of thumb when you're going out to draft. But Blinding Fog, Not very good. Ashes of the Abhorrent might have some, some impact in Constructed, but right here and right now, not particularly useful. There's not going to be a ton of people casting spells from their graveyards. And yes, the life gain is important, but just think, would you rather have a creature on turn 2 or Ashes of the Abhorrent on turn 2? Generally speaking, you want the 2-drop. Navigator's Ruin, same thing. You're taking your 3rd turn off to play an enchantment that doesn't directly impact the board instead of playing a creature or a spell that impacts the board. Draft is all about your board presence and what you're doing to sort of impact the state of play here and now. And folks, that's the end of our really brief presentation. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Remember, if you're going out to your first draft, 40 cards, make sure that you remember bread, and you should do a little bit better. Until next time, I am Kyle Ott for Magic Stew. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and talk to us on all the socials. I'm going to go back here to these lovely cards so you can look at those. But until next time, I will see you later.